I want to just state to everyone, and this was also an invitation, but just to remind everyone, the session is being recorded. The recording will be shared if you want to reference it later on the Digital Strategies website of DG CNECT in the same section where you found the agenda for this section, for this session. My name is Jan Brugge. I will be your moderator and host today. This is actually the first workshop organized by the 5G Smart Communities Support Platform. This is a new initiative launched by DG CNECT in order to support and animate the community and ecosystem around the 5G Smart Communities CEF program. What this exactly entails will be presented by the different speakers today, but it indeed is our first session, and I'm honored to be your host today. We have a great panel of speakers today. We will have, so to say, three parts to our morning. First, we will have DG CNECT give the background and context to the CEF program and specifically to the 5G Smart Communities aspect. For that, we will have Franco Accordino, who is the head of unit in DG CNECT, supervising and in charge of this program. And we have Gaudillat, who's the team leader specifically dealing with the 5G projects and the 5G Smart Community program in Franco's team. We will then have two speakers from HaDEA. HaDEA is the agency supporting DG CNECT in the implementation of the CEF 5G Smart Communities program, and notably the tendering and selection process. And for that, we have Chrysoula Lentzou and Bijnens with us today, who will speak precisely about these aspects, the practical aspects of the application and selection process. And finally, in the third part, we will have Frederic Pujol. Frederic is the team leader of the newly created support platform, and he will present to you the plans and programs and outlook of what the support platform intends to do in the years ahead, and of course, now immediately in the months ahead. So that's our program for today. Of course, this is all with a view to support you, potential applicants, but also, I guess not all of you are immediate applicants. I see some names that I know. You might be from associations, either telecom or from municipality associations. You are act, so to say, as multipliers and will pass on, hopefully, this information to your members. So the session is for you. So after each of the blocks that I just described, so DG CNECT, HaDEA, and then the 5GSC platform, please, we will have a question answer session. Put your questions into the chat, and then we will have a chance to try and answer them. Because as I said, in the end, we're here for you. This is an info day, and we want to facilitate and empower you to get the best projects possible ready for the deadline at the end of March. That's really it from me. But before we start, we would like to maybe hear from you as well. As we have over 100 people, we cannot make it 100% interactive with everybody taking the floor. But I think the colleagues from the 5GSC platform have created a little Slido poll. So Angelo, do you want to share the poll? I think you are all familiar. You've probably all been in the last years on many online workshops with using Slido. So you can just scan the QR code here that will bring you onto a questionnaire from where you can then answer some questions. And the first question we'd be very interested, because I think for all the speakers here today, is have you already applied to the previous call, the call of last year? So are there people here that are, so to say, experienced, so to say? And then the second question is, who among you is planning to submit to the current call, the call that will close in March? So it would be great if you, I see people already started voting. Fantastic, thanks a lot. and we will take it from there. I see for the moment there are many maybes, so hopefully we can convince some of the maybes to become yeses in the course of the session. We will revert to the poll outcome, but please continue using Slido. The voting is continuously on, and we will share the results again a bit later. But with this, I would like to pass the floor to Franco Accordino, Head of Unit in DG Connect, to give us the context and background to the 5G Smart Communities CEF funding. Franco, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jan. And many thanks also to the colleagues who are part of the coordination and support action to make this event possible. I'm super glad to see so high number of participants. This means that really indeed this action is generating increasingly generate interest in the community. So a few words just to introduce a bit the context, as Jan said, and then I will hand over the floor to Eric, to Chrysoula, and the other speakers to introduce more in detail the scope of the action. So for the end of the decade, you know already that we have set a quite ambitious goal for 5G. We really want 100% of the populated areas to be covered by 5G. Now, of course, the 5G deployment is already proceeding quite well, all in all. You see that 5G is already part of the offers of the main mobile network operators. But it's just, let's say, the first level of, say, the entry point into what is considered a totally new opportunity and new market for the operators, but also from the user's point of view. So let's say ensuring the 100% coverage of the populated area of European Union is of course ambitious, but it's not just a geographical coverage exercise. That is exactly what we want to pass to you. We really want to exploit 5G for its merits, for its specificities and peculiarity, for the opportunity that it gives to develop new application scenarios and concrete use cases, and also for the concrete opportunity that provides to the operators to reinvent their business models in a world which is evolving quite rapidly, and where we see adjacent, let's say, segments of the digital sector maybe being more and more interested in connectivity, because of course they see also an opportunity to bundle products, services, and their general offer on top of the connectivity with the connectivity itself. And we see and we believe actually that our mobile telecom sector can do also the other way around and bundle a more comprehensive offer for the consumers or maybe for the businesses, bundled linked to the 5G, the provision of 5G connectivity. So which exploits its peculiarity in terms, of course, of bandwidth, in terms of low latency, in terms of reliability, in terms of its possibility to support the various type of applications, including in private, let's say, 5G network contexts. So you will hear about that more from Eric and HaDEA's colleagues about the specific use cases. But this is where exactly the CEF Digital program comes into place. It provides an opportunity, a unique opportunity, I would say, in an early stage of, let's say, of the fantastic story that 5G will bring to us in the coming years, to be co-funded in supporting 5G deployments that have to enable unprecedented cases, including also at the local level, because that is also very important. From a local community, you can have a lot of ideas and a lot of concrete development that show and demonstrate how 5G can be used to improve their local economies or their quality of life or whatever, you know. And that's the challenge. In order for the 5G revolution to materialize, to take place, we need to be able to learn from each other. And for this to happen, we have set up this new action, which is a coordination and support action that allows us, and you especially, to share the best practices that are going to be funded under the program. So getting the flag, this is a European best practice for 5G means basically that others can get inspiration from your development or concrete development and can multiply, of course, these use cases all around the Union in different, let's say, geographical, socioeconomic contexts, geotypes with their own unique peculiarities, and of course, the possibility for this, let's say, best practice machine, we can call it this way, to function as an accelerator for the deployment and the take-up at the same time of 5G. So that is where we have the opportunity and the potential. But for this to happen, of course, we need you. We need, the participants. We really aim to select the excellent proposal that must be given the flag of being best practice. So by definition, they must be excellent. And secondly, once these proposals are selected and funded, we really count on the collaboration, on the willingness really to share whatever can be shared, because we also understand that not all things can be shared in the context of a project, or there is also the time to develop, the time to share. That's very important. But this is exactly the function of the coordination and support action that Jan mentioned. To make sure that this happens, we really need to have the right mindset that really those who participate in this endeavor will really feel this sense of being part of a common, let's say, vision and sharing the purpose of bringing 5G, the powerful 5G, the standalone 5G to everyone, to every citizen and every enterprise, every public institution. That's basically the ground of this event. So I really look forward for you to participate, ask questions, challenge us in our own idea if this is appropriate, but also try to contribute to bring solutions and answers to the many questions that are on the table on how to make this done. So with this, I thank you again, and I wish really a great event ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Franco. I think this clearly sets the objective for the scene. I think that's good. So with this, I think I would like to pass the floor to Eric Gaudillat. Eric is the team lead in the Commission on the call in question. Eric?
Yes.
Perfect.
Hello, good morning, everybody, and thank you, Jan, for the organization and for the floor. Angelo, if you could share the presentation, please. I have a presentation, but actually what we have, the added value of this Info Day compared with the one in September is to touch base
Just
with the
1 second, Eric.
evolution between the two.
Okay, no, it's fine. Sorry, we couldn't see the slides. Now we see them. Perfect, Eric. Sorry, excuse me. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So what is new is that the deadline has been extended. Actually, the deadline of all calls of many topics in this call were extended. So it's not particularly because of 5G for smart communities, but since the deadline was extended until 21st of March, we thought it was appropriate 5 months after to have to touch base again and to do another Info Day to convince the 47% of maybe that we saw in the poll who may apply for call 2, and to clarify what can be clarified and raise awareness again due to this extension of deadline with the new deadline 21st of March. So since and the big news that we have is, first of all, we received questions, so we know a bit more what to answer, what are the frequently asked questions in the community of stakeholders. So we will have a HaDEA answering this. But what's very important is we can now have concrete example with the 7 great projects from wave 1. And this is also new compared to last time. So my presentation is actually just a recap so that we start from the same base, a recap of what the call is, but the real news comes after me. Next slide, please. I will briefly, for those who still don't know 5G, well, that's what Franco said. There are objectives in our digital decade, so in our DG Connect digital policy, to improve the life of citizens in terms of their digital skills, integration of companies into the digital world, e-government, many objectives, but it all starts with connectivity, and we have a clear objective to have 5G for all population. But these ones is more 5G for specific vertical cases. Next slide, please. So, voilà, I'm not going to go through all of this, but there are real measurable advantages of 5G, which basically explain that there's 5G for smartphones, but there's also 5G for connecting objects, which can be sensors and actuators, with more volume of objects, more reliability, less latency. So that concretely enables. So that's the technology point of view. Next slide, please. I don't want to voilà. This is just to explain that
you have time. You can, if you want to go deeper, we still have a bit of time for you, so you don't need to rush.
Okay, thanks, Jan. But what I wanted to focus on was rather the use that we make of it, because this is what we saw also in the interaction that we have with stakeholders, that for public authorities and service providers of services of general interest, sometimes they do not know what 5G can bring. So this is again the big picture of the whole of DG Connect digital decade objectives. This this compass shows the 4 pillars where we organized all our policies, and when it comes to the applications, we want to improve the skills of citizens. We want to make sure that the government can be accessed, government services can be accessed in a digital manner, and to make sure that businesses transform to digital processes, and all of this based on objectives in connectivity, which is the sine qua non condition for that. And this is what we want to insist upon, because 5G brings use cases that no other connectivity solutions can bring. So it's one of the solutions, but it is one that has specific advantages, and it is the one which is multi-purpose and where we want to insist upon. Next slide, please. That's the reminder of the whole Connecting Europe facility that has existed in energy and transport for some time, and that for the first time exists in digital. Just a reminder that there are also actions, topics for more backbone actions and 5G corridors, and that today we are talking about the topic of 5G for smart communities, which is geared towards the end users, the public services, and the services of general interest. Next slide, please. Voilà. So this is really the key slide, that the minimum number of participants in the proposal is only 2, actually, in a 5G for smart communities project. The consortium can be made of two participants, and quite exceptionally, actually, contrary to Horizon Europe for research projects or to other for example, 5G corridors, it's okay if the 2 participants are from the same member state. All right. So where we see the added value at European level is elsewhere, is when once we have a set of several projects, and once we do what the platform will explain and put together all these projects to raise awareness, this is where the EU value will be, once we have the set of projects together. But one project, and this is something which maybe was not clear enough in our first communication, one project is 5G for one smart community, which is by definition local. So it's okay to have the operator to have only no cross-border aspect. So it's a rather simple, comparatively simple project with one minimum one, let's say minimum one owner of the network, and minimum one end user, which is in the part of the proposal, part of the consortium, and mainly asked to describe what will be the innovative use cases or use case that will be enabled by the 5G network. So you see, it's rather simple. That doesn't mean it's a constraint. There can be, of course, much more. There's no limit to the number of participants if the value chain is more complex. But just to flag that that the structure of the consortium can be rather light, and we have even seen cases where the provider of the use case is present and providing the descriptions, but it's actually receiving not the majority, a real minority of the budget, because the budget goes to the infrastructure mostly. So it's even more simple in that case, where you have end users who sometimes can even have close to zero, costs to refund in that case. So just to go a bit deeper into details, the company that provides the network will then operate it. We clarify also that, because we received a lot of questions, that it can be a private network, possibly with we don't. There's no constraint on how the spectrum license is obtained. So possibly in some countries it's feasible to have an unlicensed spectrum as long as it respects the spectrum regulation. And when it comes to the provider use case, in order not to distort the market, we impose that the user of 5G connectivity is a provider, is either a public authority or a provider of service of general interest. So that typically these are hospitals and schools and police protection and these kinds of entities. We received more accurate questions, more refined questions about what exactly is a service of general interest. Well, when you are clearly a public authority, it's easy. There are cases which are a bit more borderline, and we need to then to go and have a look, because the point is that can depend also on member state specific. The member states actually are responsible for really placing the border. So the exact case we cannot, we could not in the call provide the full answers, and this is why we have sometimes for the cases which are borderline, it requires a bit more attention. Next slide, please. Voila. So these are just this is just the call in three images. 3/4 of the costs of the eligible costs are co-funded by the grant. So this is a quite heavy co-funding rate, which makes it, we think, quite attractive and competitive. And the EU value that we have is that we facilitate the online community, and then Frederic later on will explain how the platform will animate this community and organize later discussions. So when we are like that in a moment when the call is open, we do information days to provide information and answer questions. Between calls, we also work in designing this activity and retrieving feedback from you. So where we invite you to continue to participate in giving input in order to improve and follow the evolution of the market. And Frederic will, I'm sure, invite you to the next the physical event, the kick-off meeting of this platform on 25th of April, where I, of course, also strongly encourage you to come to Brussels and participate. And the last thing is, well, this is this activity of organizing webinars. And since we will gather good practices from the ongoing projects, we will then, of course, diffuse them, raise awareness, and encourage anyone who wants to replicate even without our funding. Next slide, please. So this is the most recent update, that the deadline is extended to 21st of March. So you still have time, even if you are in the maybe category, you still have time to draft a proposal. The total funding remains 50 million, 550. The co-funding rate remains 75%. And here, yeah, there's just an idea. Yes, we precised in call 2 for the ones who are really experts in call 1 and call 2. In call 2, we made it even more explicit that some costs are eligible for the user partner in the consortium. These are typically the part of the infrastructure which is mobile, so the antennas and the connected sensors, but also some more project costs which have to do with the use case definition and these kind of costs. So this we clarified also in call 2. Next slide, please. This is really zooming more into what is eligible and what is not, because this is at the end of the day what will be, once you have made your decision, you will have to draft your proposal describing this. So the eligible costs are, of course, the 5G infrastructure, which is passive and active infrastructure, and it includes software services, 5G software services, and of course the hardware. There is also an element, we already answered the question in the call about how much fiber backhaul was eligible, and we said about 10% of the total budget. However, what is not there, since we fund the infrastructure, is really the application layers. So the internet application in all the sectors that apply 5G is not something that we will refund. Okay, I've already explained that end users are public authorities or services of general interest, and also there is a security requirement, because we ask the participants who will deploy and own networks mostly to certify, to self-declare basically how they apply the security measures. And we ask also the member state that validates the proposal to validate also this, to approve this self-declaration. Voilà, that's the next slide, please. That's voilà. So a few links for more information. For precise questions about your specific case, we have a specific, HaDEA has a specific address which allows to then publish for everybody in the call site the frequently asked questions. By the way, there are already questions and answers in the FAQ zone of the website, but in order to be very transparent, we can repeat what is public information like that. But when it comes to a specific questions which goes further, HaDEA always publishes in an anonymous manner. It doesn't say who asked, but it publishes the answer. So this is the email to ask them. Voilà. That concludes my presentation. And we could have a few questions, but maybe since the presentation of Call 1 project and of frequently useful tips are still coming, maybe it's better to wait until those two presentations are over to take questions, I think, Jan.
Okay, good. Then we'll do it as you say, Eric. That's good. There's an immediate question. Maybe you can just answer this.
Yeah,
what
sure.
is the
maximum budget per project? We have not set a really hard maximum, but there is an indicative range, which is between 300 in the call, 300. That's an indicative minimum, and the indicative maximum is now 5 million euros. 5. But so I mean, it's
between 300,000 and 5 million.
Correct. But again, we say it with diplomacy. So really, if it exceeds it, and then it needs to be really justified, basically.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Eric. Then we will follow your advice and move in a second to presentations from the colleagues from HaDEA. But before we do, I'd like to see, Angelo, can you share the results from the first poll? Okay, so we have a few participants from call 1, which is great. Welcome. And then more importantly, who among you is planning to apply for the current call, sorry, so call 2? Okay, a third more or less of the people here and a quarter not. And the majority is undecided. So you're the right audience. We're glad to have you here. And hopefully we can convince you one way or the other to make a decision whether this is the right call for you. Before I pass the floor to the colleagues from HaDEA, Angelo, I think there is the next set of questions, which is because really, if you are looking to apply, yeah, so if you're in the first, whatever, 78% or whatever, then there's a key question for us, which is, are you still looking for potential partners? So if you are a municipality, are you still looking for colleagues that can provide the use case? As Eric presented earlier, this could be healthcare, education, mobility, security, whatever. Or if you're a use case owner, are you still looking for a host organization, so the municipality or the hospital or the, I don't know, whatever, basically a partner to work with? Or if you are a municipality, are you still looking for a infrastructure company / mobile operator? So we are very interested to hear from you if that is the case. I see you're already voting. Great, thanks a lot for your participation on this. And I see use cases is one of the main challenges for the moment, though there's a relatively even spread. But I think it's good for us also to know, because as I mentioned earlier, this is literally the first session of the new 5G Smart Communities platform. So if we are looking to develop services for you, it's good if we know where the needs are. Right, then Chrysoula, is it okay? And ladies and gentlemen, please continue voting. We will look at the results after Chrysoula's presentation. Hello, Chrysoula, I see you.
Hello, good morning. Thank you, Jan, for
Excellent.
the organization.
The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. If Angelo could present the slides. There is a presentation starting from a brief overview of HaDEA, what we are doing. Okay, then. We call them success stories because they are the successful applicants. Of course, there is still room, there's still a path down the road until these projects indeed provide fruits. So next slide, please. This is HaDEA for anybody that would not know exactly the organization. This is the European Health and Digital Executive Agency. We implement European programs and managing projects related to health, digital, food industry, and space. Then, next slide. Here is an overview of the programs managed by HaDEA. You see that Connecting Europe facility corresponds to 1.7 billion out of these program budgets. And then we can pass to some examples. Here we have gathered some results, what we have learned from the selection process of the first call. We see various sizes of cities, of areas that selected 5G technology. From the small cities of Mosson-Macchiarovar or Wavre to the metropolitan area of Toulouse, for instance. The projects are not necessarily located in sparsely populated or rural areas. We have also a successful applicant from West Flanders region, representing more than 1 million inhabitants. We have signed grant agreements to enable diverse use cases from health education to disaster management, public safety, agriculture, or public city services. Due to this consortium requirement, we have seen also unique consortium compositions, bringing together private or public mobile network operators with providers of services of general interest. We have also in the list of successful projects clear objectives despite the cost. The cost varies from 400 up to 4 million. And then we will see more details in each project. We can... Yes, here is a nice illustration showcasing the Call 1 successful applicants. You can see here the diversity of the use cases supported by 5G technologies. And then we will go through one by one all 7 winners from the first call.
Chrysoula, may
Yes.
I ask a very quick question in between, just for clarity? The budgets that you indicate there, whatever, 4 million for the Italian project, 3.3 for the German, is this the total project value or is this grant value?
This is the grant value.
So the project actually is much bigger.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Here we start from the Italian one, 5G for a SAC. This is a 5G for smart Sicilian academic campus. The project, what is the consortium composition? Here we see Vodafone Italy together with the University of Palermo representing the provider of services of general interest. That will implement a 5G private mobile network in the cities of Palermo and Trapani. The project optimizes both learning and training processes and provides solid basis for improving care methods. The end users benefiting from those use cases are university environment, meaning students, professors, researchers, etc. And from the other side, the community of patients suffering from severe chronic diseases in these Italian cities in particular. Then next project is the French one, the high connectivity via 5G. And this is a visionary project for rolling out 5G technology in the Toulouse metropolitan area. Here, from the side of the consortium, we have Toulouse Metropole, the public authority, together with Alsatis, a local internet service provider, that will deliver leading-edge connectivity to public services. They build on the existing fiber optic network and data centers. And all the use cases demonstrated have high potential for Europe. You see very specific list of use cases relating to city services, traffic management, supervision of public space, event connectivity, to deploy recording and communication equipment during outdoor events, the mobility lab for access to net-based ultra high-speed services for startups and small enterprises, education that takes teaching and academic research at the University of Blagnac to a new level. Finally, high-speed video data offloading for more safe and user-friendly public transport. All these use cases have wide application to stimulate and the wider and faster deployment and take-up of 5G across Europe. Then we can see a Hungarian project, the AgriHub. This consortium is composed by Vodafone Hungary, together with a provider of services of general interest. Here we do not define this public body, because this entity, because their involvement has not been yet secured. We might face a grant agreement amendment, but this will not create any problem to the project implementation. This consortium will establish a 5G mobile private network hub at a demonstration farm in Moson Magyarovar to enable end-to-end solutions in agriculture. Very specific use cases will be supported. Row crop cultivator in field crop production, machine-to-machine connection in field crop production, and weed monitoring and spraying plan with machine-to-machine connection in field crop production. Then we have another Hungarian project with a larger consortium composition. This is a project relating to 5G-based public protection and disaster relief broadband. These services are located to the Hungarian-Ukrainian border. And we have from the one side a telecommunications service provider specialized in public protection and disaster relief, together with IDOMsoft. This is the MNO in the consortium, which is a key player in the development of electronic public services and systems. We also have socioeconomic drivers that have joined the consortium as associated partners. These socioeconomic drivers are not signing the grant agreement, but they are clearly supporting the project. And this consortium then will implement a 5G-based disaster resilient mobile network along the Hungarian-Ukrainian border to support real-time communication with broadband, voice, data, image, video transmission services with extensive coverage, high availability, high bandwidth, gigabit, and reliability for public authorities and agencies performing public tasks. You see that these public trusts relate to health services, law enforcement, police, and border protection. And these public tasks are related to much more use cases that will be enabled. Then I leave the floor to my colleague Caroline to present the projects under her responsibility.
Thanks, Chrysoula. I will just keep going. So the 5G for UH project in Germany will make 5G-based technologies available in the healthcare sector. This is a partnership between Vodafone and Frankfurt University Hospital, and together they will deploy a leading-edge 5G infrastructure to create a hospital of the future. This infrastructure will enable 6 use cases. So there will be a possibility to carry out mobile ultrasound examinations. So ultrasounds will be able, doctors will be able to carry out these ultrasounds remotely. There will also be a telemedical concept for COVID-19 diagnosis. So patients will be able to self-sample through a dedicated app. The 5G technology will also help make high quality records available that can be stored in a personal file for patients. It will also help the hospital optimize internal and external logistic processes and make a comprehensive alarm system. And then finally, it will also help wearable biosensors that will allow the doctors to monitor patients both in the hospital and at home. Then the Flanders Smart Fields project will take place in the Westhoek. This is a region also known as Flanders Fields, which, as you will know, was a major battlefield during the First World War in Belgium. The consortium here consists of 3 partners. So you have EBO Enterprises, which is the mobile network operator, Jan Iberman Hospital, and the province of West Flanders. and together they will deploy a high-end 5G infrastructure in the West Hook region. And this infrastructure will be deployed on various strategic locations in the region to obtain maximum coverage by the infrastructure and minimize blind spots. This 5G infrastructure will enable 3 use cases. So the first one is remote assistance for connected emergency response vehicles. So the 12 ambulances linked to the Jan Iperman Hospital will be equipped with 5G end user devices so that the intervention teams at location will be able to connect with the specialist doctors in the hospital. A second use case will be the transportation of blood samples by drone. So this hospital, Jan Iperman Hospital, has 2 satellite locations in neighboring towns, and with the 5G network, drones will be able to transport blood samples very quickly between these locations. It will save time and also resources. And then a third use case will be a remote classroom for students that are unable to attend classes. So the high-speed connectivity will allow children who are either sick at home or in the hospital to still attend their virtual classes. Then the 7th successful project under call 1 is Connecto. This is a partnership between CityMesh, the mobile network operator, and the city of Wavre in Belgium. And they will cover the whole city of Wavre with a state-of-the-art 5G network. This project will provide connectivity for the public sector, and 6 use cases will be enabled by this infrastructure. In particular for the local amusement park, Walibi, where they will be able to create immersive experiences and next generation attractions for visitors, and will also provide connectivity for employees to be in touch with each other. The police department can, for example, create real-time streaming of videos with the colleagues who are on location, and they can also set up remote mobile operation centers. The fire department of the city will be able to connect with virtual glasses. They will also have geolocalizers for the firefighters. Then the infrastructure will also improve connectivity in various business parks on the edges of the city. It will provide opportunities for university and high-speed connectivity on campus as well. And then finally, it will also help monitor visitor flows and analysis of people who are using public transportation in the city. You can find more information on these projects also in the funding and tenders portal in the project and results page if you would like to read more about it. These are also Chrysoula's and my contact details, and I will now pass the floor back to Chrysoula to share some tips on how to prepare a successful proposal for call 2.
Thank you very much, Caroline, for concluding with this series of successful projects. At least the projects that have been selected in call 1, showcasing applications of 5G technology and various diverse use cases that will be enabled. Now we can see some useful information for the interested applicants. This is some material that was also presented during the first info day, but we have picked some slides that we think that are more targeted and are important for a quick reminder. The lessons learned from admissibility checks from the first call. We have found missing parts in application from part B. You need to check the PDF file before uploading. Please make sure that part C as well, corresponding to the key performance indicator information, is complete. We have seen inconsistencies between budget tables, the budget table that is encoded online and the budget table that is included in the application per work package. There were missing mandatory annexes. And this because the submission system, in fact, allows submitting the proposal without them. But we need to make sure that you are aware of the mandatory annexes as described in section 5 of the call text. So do not count on the system exclusively. The member states agreement, some member states agreement were not signed, missing agreements from other concerned member states that were benefiting from the project. We have also seen incomplete information on security declarations and security guarantees. And this is to remind that new templates for these annexes are available for call 2. Then we will see lessons learned from eligibility checks from the first call. Applicants, we have encountered applicants that did not fill the minimum consortium requirement composition. You need to pay attention to the type of participants in the consortium. Affiliated entities, for instance, and associated partners do not count as members of the consortium. You need to read carefully the scope the scope section in the call document, because we indeed had proposals that were out of scope. This is an important section to read carefully. Then we can go through the applicant's checklist. Also this information has been presented in the info day. Some questions. Then does your proposal fit in the scope of the call for proposal for which you are applying? As we previously also seen in the previous slide, it is important that you proofread your proposal. For instance, we are not based on assumptions. You need to provide very clear information. The external evaluators need to be based on specific justification and clear descriptions. You need to demonstrate the added value of CEF Digital funding. You need to be clear and what is evident to you is not necessarily evident to the evaluators. Also, make sure that you use the application forms and templates that are available in the Funding and Tenders portal. The use of these templates is compulsory. Regarding the scope, your proposal, just a reminder, will be evaluated against the criteria specified for the call only based on the information that you provide in your application. Then we can continue to some more questions. Did I encode all sections of applications from Part A directly in the platform? Did I read through, complete and upload application from Part B? Is Part C completed in the platform? Did I attach all the mandatory annexes? Again, Section 5, Admissibility and Documents, read carefully for the relevant context. We can continue to see closely if the external stakeholders are contacted as early as possible in order to get necessary support letters, security guarantees, and approvals in time. You can check following this link the national contact points. They are available for you. For the security guarantees, you see a a snapshot of what is required for this particular call, the security declaration, the security guarantees approved by the member state, and also the part in Part B that needs to be completed in your application. As Eric also said, the deadline is extended to the 21st of March. And there is no reason in delaying the submission because you might be concerned about confidentiality issues. Rest assured that the system does not allow any access to the proposals before the call deadline. So please don't leave submission to the last day. You can submit the proposal as many times as you wish up to the deadline. Every submitted version will replace the previously submitted one. So this is an important information, not to restrain you from having all the necessary information already in the system. Then we can see together some frequently asked questions. We have grouped here some that we think brings new elements for call 2. Are private networks projects for specific smart community applications eligible? Yes. Here's the link also to the published FAQ. Is there a need to deploy infrastructure in more than one member state to address the cross-border dimension of the project? This was also explained by Eric in his presentation. As he said, no, it is addressed mainly ex post by the synergy between the implemented projects. Can a 5G infrastructure be used for commercial purposes during the lifetime of the project? Yes. Nevertheless, only the part used for public authorities and providers of services of general interest will be funded. Can use cases be funded? Yes, for the design or connected sensors, such as antennas. There are 2 relevant FAQs published on the portal. These have been, I hope that this can be proved useful at this stage for you. These questions have been received by our services from potential interested applicants, and we proceed to their publication to ensure equal treatment while the call is open. Finally, you can see again the functional mailbox where you can contact us. Please send any questions you might have to this address. We strongly encourage you to use it. It is not impersonal. We are behind this address. And of course, as I said, because we need to ensure equal treatment during while the call is open, we might take some time to respond because we need to publish an FAQ at the same time. Besides, you need to take time also to go through the FAQs. They are published in the Funding or Tenders portal. And besides, this is the product of your questions, so it is worth navigating through them. Thank you very much. I hope this information was clear. I see many questions in the chat.
Yes. Thanks a lot, Chrysoula and Caroline. That was amazing. I think, in fact, your presentation was great and already answered some of the questions. Still, we will go through the questions one by one. Hopefully in a minute, but I saw that there are some questions that will actually also be answered by Frederic Pujol's presentation. So what I would suggest is that we stick to the original agenda. So we go to Frederic's presentation in a minute and then do the Q&A, because there are many questions, and then I will try and structure them a little bit. But before we do that, Angelo, can you share with us the outcome of the first poll, of the second poll in terms of the looking for partners? Thank you, Angelo. Okay, so the really large when you share it, voting continues. Great. But the large majority is actually looking for use cases, and then which I don't know, of course, if that's the case, but it looks like the majority of the participants here today are the host organizations looking for partners. So that's great, and you're very welcome. I will pass the floor now to Frederic Pujol, because one of the objectives of the 5G Smart Communities platform will specifically be to facilitate partnering and linking potential applicants. So Frederic will present how that is planned. And then there's actually also, I understand the Frederic's team is also planning some training sessions, and that will also answer hopefully some of the questions that you've asked. But we will try and revert to all of the questions. We still have quite a bit of time. Frederic, are you there? Can I pass the floor to you?
Yeah, can you hear me, Jan?
Yeah, I hear you perfectly. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jan. Okay, so my presentation today will focus on the objectives of the service platform, and I will also describe the methodology and the main 5G SC events organized by the platform. So many aspects have already been covered by the European Commission and HaDEA this morning, so I will jump directly to slide number 6, please. And to give you some insights on the support platform. So it's a CSA, EU project financed by the European Commission, and its main objective is to support the 5GSC program. So the project started in December last year and will run until the end of December 25, so in 3 years now. The leading partner of this support platform is Schumann Associates in Brussels. And the two partners are the European Telecommunications Network Operators Association in Brussels and EDAT Consulting, a French consulting company. Next slide, please. So I will start with the objectives. The first objective of the platform is really to serve as a one-stop shop for you stakeholders to get information and to be able to easily access all the necessary information on smart communities. The second objective is to animate the cluster of 5G projects. So as was presented earlier, we already have 7 projects from Call 1 available. So what we will do, we will facilitate information exchange, knowledge sharing, and collaboration between the projects. We will develop a knowledge base of the use cases. You've already seen that we have very interesting use cases covering e-health, education, emergency services, and coverage of rural areas. So as more projects will be granted through the upcoming calls, we'll have a much wider number of use cases. The idea is also to replicate good practices. I'll come back on this later. Next slide, please. So one of the important objectives, of course, is to engage stakeholders in the community. So for this, we will raise awareness of the existing 5GSC project in order for all stakeholders to know what's happening and what's being implemented. We will provide guidance and support to applicants. So you've already seen some tips presented by HaDEA. We will foster synergies with the Smart Cities initiative. So this is also an important aspect of the smart communities here. Of course, we will. One of the objectives is to maximize the number of applications for each call. So this is why there will be workshops organized to give you information before the calls, and there will be also other info days for each 5GSC call. And we will also support the European Commission in policy conception and stakeholder consultation in order to adapt to the needs of the stakeholders. So we will collect ideas, inputs, insights from the 5GSE stakeholder groups. And we will support the design and the implementation of a 5GSE policy and the CEF work programs by the European Commission. So now, how are we going to reach these objectives? So I'm going to present the methodology, starting with the animation of the cluster of the project. So one of the first tasks is to create a project fiche. So we will start with the 7 projects of call 1. And the idea is here to share the key requirements and the main characteristics of each project and of the use cases associated. So we will detail the technical specifications, requirement analysis, the architecture. For instance, are the projects using edge computing or other specific deployment? We will highlight business and investment models and also partnership agreements. So this could give ideas to potential applicants. For you to get access easily to information on the project, so we will create an online repository. So this will be dedicated pages on the digital strategy website of the European Commission. And so we will detail the good practices from the existing and future projects. And this information, of course, will be open to any potential applicant for 5G use cases. Next slide, please. We will also create an interactive brochure for each CEF call with a presentation of the project. And we will animate the cluster and exchange of knowledge between applicants and holders of a project. So this will be done with exchange of information between the projects. And we will animate the community with meetings. And there will be a project coordinators will be involved in these cluster meetings. Of course, in liaison and in collaboration with HaDEA. Next slide, please. Okay, second part here is how to engage stakeholders in the smart communities. First task will be to develop a database of community members. So this will be available and will grow, of course, as there are more CEF calls launched. We will create a communications and community building strategy. So this will be done in collaboration with DG CNECT and HaDEA. So there will be communication campaigns and events. So more than 25 events, if I remember well, during the whole duration of the support platform. There will be community engagement activities in order to develop connection between stakeholders. So it's important that infrastructure players can easily find use cases, holders that wish to work together. There will be capacity building program to develop good practices and to provide also training for call applicants. And we will develop and promote all this on the digital strategy website of the European Commission. Next slide, please. An important aspect will be the relationship with the community, but also with other stakeholders. So we will create and expand the 5G community of stakeholders. And this will be done through the implementation of the community building and communication strategy. So this will define which event will be organized and who they will target. We will inform you about the benefits of 5G use cases. So you've seen during the presentation from HaDEA that there are really innovative use cases. For instance, in Hungary, the deployment of PPDR services. So this is quite specific, but could be maybe replicated in other countries. We will facilitate the involvement of the community in the development of proposal, and but also in the implementation of the projects once they have been selected. So all the information you need will be available on the digital strategy website, and we will of course update this information about deployment strategy. We will give you of course updated information on future calls with details on the timing and budget. And information on the financing modalities will also be available here. Next slide, please. So one of our objectives is to maximize participation in CEF calls, in the calls 3, 4, and 5 that will be coming. So we will support potential applicants, and we will provide some tools and templates. So this will be done in order to facilitate the application process and also the identification of partners and good practices. So we will implement communication campaigns and workshops. So this will be done before each call in order to maximize the participation in each call. We will increase the accessibility of the program to all stakeholder groups. And for this, we will communicate a clear value proposition, and we will provide resources and tools to facilitate applications. We will develop and implement a good practice sharing plan and also capacity building workshops. So these workshops will be detailed a little bit later on, but the idea is to give more detailed information on use cases and also on tools to facilitate participation in the calls. We will also collect feedbacks in order to the way around, in order to facilitate and to improve value proposition for smart communities. Next slide, please. So, of course, the Call 1 projects are financed by the European Commission, but one important idea behind 5G for smart communities is that the project financed by the European Commission could be replicated in member states and also with other financing instruments. So, for instance, one of them is the Recovery and Resilience Facility. So this one, it's a EU instrument for recovery from the coronavirus pandemic. And there is also the European Regional Development Fund, which has for objective to correct the imbalances between European regions. So you see that it will be important to keep in mind that projects can be financed at EU level directly by the 5GSC program, but also by other European or national instruments. Next slide, please. In order to discuss with the public authorities and facilitate discussion with the Commission, so the European Commission and the support platform will create a public authorities group. So on this, the support platform will set up the secretariat and organize the meetings. It's important to state that this new group will be distinct to the existing CEF working groups. The existing CEF working groups are really the contacts between the EU and the member states. But this new group will be an operational group. So it will really look at the impact and the implementation side of the CEF digital program. It will constitute a counterpart in member states for the European Commission. And its objective is to facilitate exchange on the programming and implementation of the 5GSE work program. So this group will have 2 meetings per year, and it will have also subgroups to work on specific topics such as safe calls and use cases for health and education. Next slide, please. The support platform will also help the Commission to adapt the future 5GSE calls. So for this, there will be consultation processes. And the objective here is to develop a common vision between stakeholders and the Commission. So there will be communities initiatives, and what we will do, we will get inputs and feedbacks, especially on the needs and expectation of you, the potential applicants. We will distribute a questionnaire in order to get feedback on various aspects. So first on the administrative aspects of the applications. So how could the process be facilitated or be more effective, or other aspects? There will be questions on the financial aspects of the applications, on the sources of funding, for instance, or how costs are assessed. And we will also ask questions on technical aspects of the project, about the use cases and spectrum usage. You've seen that it's very interesting to see that there are various spectrum bands that are already used by Call One projects. For instance, the 2.6 gigahertz by Toulouse in France, 3.5 gigahertz in Belgium, and the 700 megahertz band in Hungary for the PPDR services. So this really shows innovative use of the spectrum by non-MNOs. We will provide consultation reports to the Commission for the design of the next calls. So we'll really use the feedback from stakeholders, and the findings will be discussed in various groups. So in the public authorities group I just presented, and also during workshops that will be organized 4 to 6 months before each call, in order to get inputs and feedback from you, the stakeholders. Next slide, please. One of the tasks for our support platform is to exchange with other CSAs. So Eric already mentioned the corridors, and there is one CSA for the corridors project, which is the guide CSA. So we are discussing with the CSA in order to share information and participate to each other events. Another one is the SCODINET, the Smart Connectivity Digital Innovation Hub Network, which is targeting the financing the digital transition, especially for small and medium enterprises. Another one is the governance of the Living in EU. So this is mainly for smart cities initiatives. So it's important to link smart cities and 5G infrastructure here. And we are also discussing with the 6G Infrastructure Association. So this is the private counterpart of the European Commission for 5G and 6G R&D activities. So we are discussing with the trials working group. It's important because we can find stakeholders interesting by one use case and looking for 5G infrastructure. So there can be interesting synergies between this working group and 5GSC. And we will also discuss with the vertical working group of the 6GIA. Next slide, please. So I told you that we will organize more than 25 events during the 3 years of the support platform. So next one was already mentioned by Eric. So it will be the 5GSC launch event. So it will take place on the 25th of April in Brussels. So this will be a physical event and a very good opportunity to meet each other. There will be, the agenda has not been defined yet, but there will be time for exchange between stakeholders, and this will be a real important event for the community. We'll have many webinars. A webinar for Call 3, for the launch and also the promotion of Call 1 projects. We'll organize 5GSC cluster collaboration meetings between the projects. There will be 2 such workshops each year. We will organize, it's not 6, but 7 capacity building sessions per year. I will detail this later on. And also 5GSC public authorities meeting for the group I just presented. We'll have dedicated webinars in order to maximize participation in the calls. So call teaser and online info day webinars like the one we are organizing today. And we'll have various interactions with applicants through surveys that will be organized to collect stakeholder feedbacks, and also through the digital strategy website, so through the dedicated 5GSC pages, where you will get all the information and resources, especially for potential applicants. Let's have a look on next slide at the capacity building workshops. So this is a draft agenda. It's not a final one, but it's in order to give you an idea of the themes that will be covered during these workshops. So these workshops will be, let's say, 1 hour or 1 hour and a half sessions. They will be organized every first Thursday of the month. And the first one in April will cover 5G use cases. The second one in May will be focusing on healthcare. In June, we will address the question of campus network for smart communities. And in September, infrastructure sharing for 5GSC projects. Then we'll have 3 dedicated sessions on how to provide a good application to get 5GSC grants. So the first one in October will be on consortium planning and management. The second one in November on co-funding and procurement obligations. And in December, we will have a session on the bid writing process for 5GSC. Next slide, please. So in order to contact us, you can see here a dedicated email address, community@5gsc.eu. So we will answer you as soon as possible for any question you might have on the 5GSC support platform. There is also a phone number here and the hashtags where you will find information on the support platform and the programs from the European Commission. Thank you very much for your attention.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Frederic. Great to hear about this new platform and how you're going to support this 5G smart community going forward. So we have a lot of questions. Thank you very much, first of all, from all of you for the questions. I've tried to cluster them now, and we'll go through them in clusters. Before we do that, actually, because Frederic and his team, notably Angelo, who's hosting us here today, are working to prepare the training program or the capacity building program that Frederic just presented. And one of the questions, of course, that the new platform has is, what are actually your needs? Because as Frederic explained, to start this agenda or this scope of future workshops was designed. But of course, we'd like to hear from you. What are your needs, your expectations? So this is the next question, so to say, on the Slido. This is a word cloud, so feel free, let us know what topics, what areas you would like future workshops to focus on. As you saw, Frederic is planning some workshops on use cases. I don't remember now, but I think healthcare specifically, maybe education, I don't know, and then specific workshops on consortium management, on tips on writing applications, etc. But if there are other aspects, or even among those workshops, elements or subjects you would like us to cover specifically, please feel free, share it here. Right, then I will try now to go. We'll leave the word cloud open here. Feel free to continue contributing. I now go back to our speakers, Chrysoula, Caroline, Eric, and Frederic, I guess. I will try and structure these, all the many questions, and actually some questions were sent to us in private chat, which is also great. Thanks a lot. We'll try and cover all of them. I tried to structure it in four, let's say, we have quite a bit of time, so I tried to structure it in 4 elements, but it's not always 100% clear. Maybe first on, so to say, who can apply the consortium, because there are quite a few questions on this. Then we'll talk about the funding, what can be funded, how's the co-funding, etc. Then we'll talk about the technology / use cases, and then we'll talk about the eligibility and annexes, security, these kind of aspects. Yeah. So that means we won't go through the questions in the order that you posted them, which is great, but I'll try and structure it a little bit. So I'll start with the very first question. I don't know, I guess this is for Eric, but of course, Chrysoula, Caroline, Frederic, always feel free to step in. The first question I think is very important, but also very basic. I think, Eric, you answered it, but the question was, is the current call limited to education and healthcare use cases? And is it limited to projects in rural areas?
No, there is no limitation. All the sectors are welcome. And that's basically the one of the interests of this call, that it's bottom up, and that the most interesting use cases will eventually come up in the selection. So no, there's no such thing. What there is, and there's no difference between call 1 and call 2 about that, by the way. So as you saw in the 7 projects, you have one in you have 2 in rural zones, but you have also one in Toulouse in cities. So there's no constraint on the kind of zone. What smart community means is very flexible, basically, in terms of size and geography. No constraint on this. What there is actually a kind of special mention of health and education. But these 2 are simply special mentions. So basically, health and education, where if you have a use case in this, it will kind of automatically be considered that this sector is useful. But then you still need to explain the use case and that it's interesting, etc. So no, there's no constraint, neither on the sector nor on the geography.
Good. The next question, I think, Eric, you also answered in your presentation, but it came twice in the chat. So I think it's important you clarify. Is there a requirement on the nationality and the number of members in the consortium?
No, there is no requirement at all on the number. There is no minimum number. Well, the minimum number is 0, basically, is 1. So there's no requirement on the number. What there is, though, is that as in all the Connecting Europe facility, in order to apply to be a member of a consortium, to be a beneficiary, you need to be a legal entity which is established in the European Union. So from this point of view, there is this obligation, but there is no. It's not like Horizon Europe when you need to have three different countries. The two partner, if there are only two partners, a network operator and a user, the two can be in the same country. It's fine.
Perfect. Thanks. I think that's clear, but it's important to clarify. But this brings me straight to the next question. You just said it, which we need a network operator. Does that mean, because the question was posted here as well, do we need a mobile network operator with a licensed spectrum, or can it be a neutral operator?
No, there is no constraint on who will own and operate the network. However, of course, at the end of the project, there needs to be a use case that works, right? So there needs to be sufficient explanation and guarantee in the description of the proposal that that this will happen in the end. Right?
And I think the projects that Chrysoula and Caroline presented earlier showed both scenarios. We had Vodafone on the one hand, clear MNO with spectrum licenses in many member states, and then we had, let's say, CityMesh, who are an operator but without their own spectrum, I guess.
Yes.
As examples. Perfect. Then there were a couple of questions on, and actually the last one here from Dennis also, but others asked similar questions. The project has to deploy 5G, but therefore there needs to be, to use the terminology, market failure. Is there a need to prove that where the project intervenes, at the time of application, there is no available 5G network?
Oh, the term market failure is not exactly per se written in the call, but the concept has been indeed followed when we designed the call. We simplified that by saying that the user must certify that there is no existing 5G which complies with which is able to deliver the needed service in the framework of the needed use case. So what this means is that if there is no existing 5G, that's easy. There's no existing 5G, so of course no 5G can deliver the needed use case. If there is 5G for smartphones, 5G with quality X, and you need quality X plus Y, then that's more subtle, but that's still eligible, and you can still justify this, that there is not the 5G that we need for this and that reason for the use case that we envisage. So this is how we simplified basically the concept of market failure. But you don't need it's not the same as a national project where there are already procedures for that. It's simplified, but it's the same idea. So it's not a matter of in which zone you are with respect to national references and this kind of thing. It's a matter of exactly this community, how it was served before the project.
Thanks, Eric. Then there is a question I think that is important to answer, because it was not formulated like this, but I think by answering this, you will de facto answer several of the other questions, which is, how do you define service of general interest? Is there a definition? Is there a guideline or
yes,
some?
Fortunately, for some entities, it's easy. If you're a public authority, if you are most public hospitals, this kind of thing. But the definition is only a concept, and the lawyers tell me that the actual examples depend on each member state. So I am in trouble to answer exactly this. So you need to know in your member state, if you are close to the border, whether how the border is defined in the case law of your member state. So in the call, we have a specific part there with notes that even sector by sector we tried to help you as much as we could. But if you are really close to the border, you need to check it by yourself with your national member state case law.
Okay, thank you. So I think then the borders are not completely clear, but maybe we'll leave the, so to say, the who can apply and what can you apply for, and talk a little bit about the technology, because you mentioned several times there, and in fact you took the example of 5G is not the same as 5G. So the question is there a quality of service expectation or requirement under the call?
Not exactly, not a quantitative measure. It's rather a top-down approach whereby we say we need the user to describe the use case. We will rate how innovative it is, so that puts the pressure to have something innovative, and then deriving from that, we need to know that 5G was necessary to deliver this use case. So this way we remain very flexible in terms of which 5G we mean. Any 5G is eligible basically, but we need basically we will rank the use cases depending on how innovative they are.
But does it require full 5G or non-standalone? So basically a version of
there's no constraint on standalone versus non-standalone. It is true that standalone does provide more quality of service. So this will be evaluated by the experts, but we don't we don't how shall I say put constraints on whether it's standalone or non-standalone.
Okay. Then staying with the technology question, one of the questions was if the use case we want to do, the equipment, so the drones or I think the virtual reality goggles or something, are not yet available to be linked to 5G per se, but are LTE-based technology use case. Can we still do that?
If the only 5G. If the 5G network is needed to provide that, we don't necessarily say what kind of antenna is on the other side on the end user device, but we wonder whether we request that 5G technology is needed in the network. This is what we request. So if there is currently an LTE network and the LTE antenna in the device is enough, then that's not eligible. If devices with an LTE antenna require to work to function the 5G network in order to cover, because there is a massive number of connected objects, or because of special quality requirements. If 5G network is required, then this is eligible in the scope of the project.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm trying to formulate and capture all of your questions here. But please, of course, if you feel that you didn't get all the answer or whatever, please feel free to still interact in the chat. We can also pass you the mic, of course. Though I don't see everyone. I only see Eric speaking. So I'm happy to pass the mic to anyone that wants to take the floor, but please let us know in the chat. Then Eric, staying with the technology just for another minute. Is my understanding correct, based on the use cases presented by Caroline and Chrysoula, that we can have, let's say, closed networks or campus networks, as they're sometimes called, as well as open networks, so networks available for all users?
Yes, there's no constraint on that. Private networks work. You can see, for example, the project in Wavre is basically a kind of private network, which is providing all kinds of services that belong closely or not to the city of WAV. So there are many use cases, but they are still not open to the general public. This is a private network, and this is eligible because this shows very well what 5G can do for a smart community, for a smart city in that case. Yeah.
And that is linked to a question that I think was asked actually a couple of times. In this case, Wavre was, of course, a municipality, but would also research institutions like universities or others be eligible to apply?
I'm afraid I have to answer that depends. If the research, because research centers, they are close to this borderline I was referring to about what is an SGI or not. So if the research center is part of a larger project where the end user is a provider of SGI, and the research center is here to carry out some of the tasks, then of course there's no constraint on how the consortiums wants to get organized and to share the work. That's okay. Now, if there's no other user and research is per se the service of general interest, then we have to see. I don't know. There might be member states where it depends how the research center is funded or this kind of criteria. So if it's a provider of service of general interest, yes, it's eligible.
But let's say the campus of a state or public, I should say, because they can be regionally owned or city owned, but whatever. But let's say a public university would a priori be possible.
Yes, I think that these in many member states is a service of general interest. Yes, of course, it's education, right? And we have health and education, as I was telling you, which are automatically well considered in the impact. So yes.
All right, perfect. Then the last question here from Greta links to other questions that were asked, and this is so to say, I guess your presentation was very clear. The CEF funding funds the deployment of the 5G network. Yeah, everything that's required, maybe a little bit of backhaul, the antennas, the active equipment, the software for the management of the network. That's clear. And then there's the question, where does the use case start and where does the infrastructure stop? And I guess this is also Greta's questions. Are smart objects, sensors, etc., still part of the infrastructure investment and eligible for funding?
No, so the hardware of the use case itself, which is not part of the infrastructure, in that is not eligible by default. What is eligible inside of this is the antennas and hardware which contain the antenna on which are by themselves an integrated connected sensor, this kind of thing, because it goes with the antenna. But so we cannot say that a sensor is funded by default. No, a connected sensor is funded, but the other pieces of hardware that are needed in the use case, if connected ambulances, for example, work, the ambulances, we cannot fund them because they are not part of the connectivity infrastructure.
Okay, so the border, if I may say, the split is between the infrastructure on the one hand and the use case on the other.
Well, an extensive concept of the infrastructure, knowing that mobile antennas and mobile connected sensors, or mobile or connected sensors, which are separated, this is still considered. This is still fundable, but yes, that's the frontier. If there are other pieces of equipment in the use case, they must be funded with other sources.
Exactly. So, but I don't think we've seen it in the 7 examples presented earlier by Chrysoula and Caroline, but potentially we could also have a project that is not just, and I'm not saying it's little, they're great projects, but not 5G coverage, but we could have 5G small cell type projects where then these sensors might play a bigger role because they would still be part of the infrastructure.
Yes.
All right. I think,
and there was the question of the drone, which are really at the borderline of this frontier. As long as the reason to be of some hardware is to be connected, and the antenna is part of that. Since we refund the antenna, basically we accept to refund the hardware that goes with it. But that's really the borderline. We cannot fund larger equipment where the antenna is really a minority piece. That's where the border is.
Okay, I think there's just one question left, though I might forget, but then I'll move to other points. But there's a good question here from Mohamed. Is the software upgrade for the 5G core part of the scope?
For the 5G core, this we would have to see, because core can mean something really far away from the community, from the local community. So if it starts to be really shared with a lot of other places, that can be more delicate. But that's a bit difficult to answer like that. You would have to provide by email more explanation on about what's the share of the use case that will be what's the share of this cost which will be allocated to the use case in scope.
All right, so but that means a priori software is eligible, but we would just have to see that a fair share of the cost is allocated to the project.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Then I'd like, because you just so this is a perfect segue or transition to the next question, which is about the, let's say, financial aspects. And of course, the two are closely interlinked. This percentage of fund allocation, and there's quite a few questions on this. So first of all, you mentioned that the project can fund up to 75% of the eligible cost. I think that's a clear starting position. Then the question just came, is there a maximum percent of the overall project? So I don't know, I just say a fictive number, yeah, but let's say the infrastructure deployment costs $1 million, and is there a maximum or a minimum amount what the use case should cost?
No.
So we could have an infrastructure, I don't know, a fictive number that costs $1 million, and a use case that costs 100,000, or a use case that costs 2 million. That is not a pertinent element for the evaluation.
But the use case, in the use case, some elements are not eligible anyway. So if we don't fund, we don't apply constraints. There's no problem.
Okay, very good. Then, and this no, maybe well, I guess then we have to move to the more tricky and difficult question. That so let's stay with the example. The cost for the infrastructure costs $1 million. Then the eligible co-funding might be 750,000 from CEF, and 250,000 have to be paid by the applicant.
Yes.
But let's say the infrastructure, the network built for 5G, services not only the use case, but also services maybe other users, let's say private users. And therefore, they're not just for general interest, but they are commercial. How do we deal with that?
The first thing from the frequently answered questions is that it was not clear in everybody's mind that the constraint only applies during the lifetime of the project, first of all. So there is a constraint, but it stops being a constraint once the project is finished, first of all. The second thing is, in order to make sure that we only, for in the case of shared infrastructure, that we only refund the use cases for public authorities and services of general interest, there must be an accounting separation between the two. And when I say accounting separation, there must be a breakdown of the proportion of this shared infrastructure used for the fundable part. So the use cases of public authorities and services of general interest. And for this, there must be the description of the proposal must explain what will be the accounting method to split the two. So there must be a breakdown key, something which makes sense, might be the number of users or the number of gigabytes consumed or the number of connections, something that has to do with measuring the intensity of the use between the part which is in the scope and the part which is not in the scope. And then the cost will be, we will apply this ratio to the cost of the total infrastructure so that we fund only the part which is eligible cost. And then there was a question saying, yes, but if the proposal has a forecast of 27 of a certain proportion, and then actually in reality it is different, how do we do? Well, this we will see later on at monitoring. So HaDEA will see, the project officers of HaDEA will see at the monitoring level of the project. But this information we need to have. The experts will evaluate the credibility of the forecast in the proposal. Of course, this is what they have, the information they have at evaluation level. But there is also a need to, at monitoring level, provide the actual ex post figures, and this is what will be applied.
And then an immediate question to that. So let's say I stay with my same silly example: €1 million project. Eligible cost maximum up to 750,000, but maybe we project that, I don't know, the project will generate revenues of 200,000 from private users, so we only apply for 550, yeah, in the example, yeah. Then the project, if we, instead of earning 200,000, we earn 300,000, then it's pretty clear at the end of the project, instead of, let's say, invoicing the CEF program for the 550, we invoice only for 450 because we had more revenues than anticipated. So that's, I think that's logic.
Yes, because it also, there's also the element that on the scope that is eligible, and during the lifetime of the project, a private company cannot actually make a revenue using the grant. You see what I mean? So it's but that's in the scope which is eligible. Then in the scope which is not funded, there is no such constraint. Of course, commercial usage creates a commercial revenue, which is of course normal.
Okay, so de facto, okay, then this issue does not really apply, because if it's split from the beginning and that's two separate networks, the part of the network that is applied for the cost
two separate networks.
Linear then.
Yeah, it's not actually two separate networks in the sense. I saw a question in the chat that it's not. We're not saying it's actually separated in terms of usage, and that there cannot be dynamic transfers of resources and all these things. It's more that there is an accounting convention that allows knowing which percentage we will use to know which share is in scope and which share is out of scope. We do not say that that these are two separate networks physically. I mean, in the usage, in the implementation of the network, of course. This is the whole interest of having shared infrastructure.
Okay, Eric, I will just take a 2-minute break, if I may say, to say thank you very much. I see many people are leaving us because it's 12 o'clock, and in some countries, of course, it's already 1 o'clock. Thank you very much for joining us. And to answer the question, yes, the slides as well as the recording of the session will be shared on the digital strategies website of DG Connect, where you also found the agenda and the registration. So give us a little bit of time, and the organizers will upload everything there, and you will find more information on the future sessions there as well. But in fact, we have a bit more time, if I'm not mistaken. But Angelo, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we have until 12:30, right? We have another 25 minutes.
Yes.
Okay. So Eric, if you're good, there's quite a few more questions. So for those that have time to stay, I think it's good if we can continue.
Sure. Yeah, I'm here to help applicants to still apply before the 21st of March. So everything I can do, yes.
Perfect. And thank Lavinia for sharing it there. Perfect. Then there was a question, both can drones be funded under the project, and somebody asked what then in the case of sensors, or I don't remember the exact wording, sensors, and what give us an example of the type of sensors that could be funded, or devices. I think you answered it, but as the question came back,
no, there's no. I'm not going to go into what kind of sensors can be funded. It's just that if they are connected sensors, it's fine. But not connected sensors. It's connected by the 5G. I mean, connected to a 5G antenna within the framework of the project. Then it's considered that yes, you need to buy the antenna anyway. So we are refunding it. But we do not fund all the hardware of the use case. We fund the antennas and the hardware that goes with it.
Exactly. So I just see, actually, literally as I was formulating my question to Eric, I see Adriano, you posted a new question. So I don't know, of course, the exact project that you're thinking about, but from what it appears like, the wearables, sensors, drones, etc., would normally be part of the use case from the type of questions I see, and not of the infrastructure deployment. So therefore, they would not be funded under the CEF grant. They would have to be funded from other sources. All right. Then I think we've covered most of the technology questions. There was just one that I would like to pass the floor to Olivier. I'm not sure, but I think, Olivier, you're from Nokia, and you had a question on a specific use case on, I think, measuring 5G. I think it's better if you formulate it yourself, if that's okay. Could you take the microphone? No, Olivier? Okay. Then I will try and formulate it in my words, Eric, but if I understand right, the question was whether a use case about providing transparency on the availability of 5G across the municipality would be an eligible use case.
Well, that depends. It seems that it requires, but does it require then? What we fund is the deployment of the 5G network. Yes. So you mean that to make sure that to measure that the network was actually deployed? Yes, that's yes. Measuring the result of a project is part of the project. Yes, measuring the
okay,
the quality of how it was done. Yes, that's still
so
part.
It could be part of the infrastructure or the
deployment. Yes,
core
project.
project.
The last stage of deployment to check the quality. Yes.
Good. And indeed, Chris, thanks
if I
for
may, yes, it could be part of the acceptance part of the project, or the user acceptance part. Yeah.
Okay, so Olivier, I hope you're still there. I hope that answers your question. Then Chris, sorry, and thanks for pinging me. I forgot the question, which is the use case itself is not funded. I think that you made clear, but I think you mentioned in your slide, Eric, that the development of the business plan or the planning of the use case could be part of the eligible costs. So could you clarify that?
Well, this is what we wrote in the core text, that some costs of in the use case design, project management, these costs, it is fair to refund them for the user, because the use case design is used by the operator to it is part of the design of the network itself. It's an input to the design of the network. So we thought it was fair to also refund the design part. So basically not the rollout, the design, the things, the input which is useful for the operator to size and to calibrate the network.
Perfect, thanks. I hope, Chris, that answers your question. That brings me to another question that was also somewhere in the chat, which is, can the use case be explorative? So can the use case be about a technology that does not yet actually exist, where the use case is about doing kind of field trials, let's say?
Now this starts to be very precise, and I'm not an expert, so I would prefer to leave the experts decide on that, because it's arguable. You would have to explain that we still roll out the infrastructure for a sustainable use case. So it's up to you I mean, to the proposer to explain how this trial will convert into something sustainable with different scenario, and but what's the plan if there is some uncertainty, what's the probability, and then what part will be sustainable in the end of the project. That's all.
All right, so I hope we answered that as well. Thank you. There, I just got also in private chat a very good question. The overall funding rate for the eligible costs is 75%. But of course, in the costs, there are many categories. There's, as you just mentioned, maybe the planning of the network, there's the backhaul, there's the antennas, etc., etc. Can certain categories be 100% funded and others then obviously at a lower rate, as long as the average is 75%?
That I may let maybe Chrysoula and Caroline answer, because it's about exactly how the invoices of costs, how the costs are.
Yes,
are affected.
thank you. Yes, in fact, the co-funding rate is applied to the total budget estimates, to the total budget cost. So we cannot separate multiple co-funding rates within the different budget categories. So the same co-funding rate applies to all budget categories.
Okay, thank you.
And it cannot go beyond 75%.
All right. Sorry, I just got another chat here. So can the business plan and viability for each use case be defined during project implementation, or does it need to be ready at the moment of application? I think this goes back to the previous question on, so to say, the maturity of the use case.
Yeah, that also maybe Chrysoula has something to say, but we need some business plan, which always contains uncertainty anyway. So this is part of the competitive evaluation, basically. So the more you can put and the more credible, then the more the experts will rank. We like the proposal. I don't think we can answer exactly about what level of uncertainty is feasible. As any project, there is some level of uncertainty, and it's a bit part of the game to explain it as precisely as possible, right? I don't know, Chrysoula, if you want to comment on this, but that's part of the evaluation, right?
It is indeed. Thank you, Eric. Yes, it is indeed part of the evaluation. And of course, the award criteria, such as the maturity one, will be assessed during evaluations. Of course, we cannot say 100%. We do not expect each criterion to be addressed 100% at the time of the applications, but this, of course, is to be assessed.
And points will be awarded to the maturity of the project. There's another question here, very technical. I think, Chrysoula, we might need you. How is VAT treated? So is it 75% without VAT or with VAT?
Okay, the VAT is something to be calculated within the cost estimations of each project. I understand that VAT is applied. We would not expect to exclude VAT from their invoices or from their budget estimations.
So VAT is an eligible cost, but it still has to fall within the 75%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think one that hopefully answers your question. Then I hope I haven't forgotten too many questions, but please, and many of you are pinging me here on private chat, so please feel free to let me know if I didn't ask your question rightly, or please feel free to take the microphone. But now I'd like to move to the difficult questions of eligibility. And there was one question which I have not seen like this before, and I've worked on many EU applications. If one member of a group is applying, will then all sub-members of the same group be considered as part of the consortium, or they need to be registered separately?
So this, Chrysoula, you may answer about legal entities. Yes, thank you.
Yes, indeed, all parts. We set the minimum requirements of the consortium. Of course, there is no maximum. So the more partners, the more members of the consortium. This means that there is high support for this particular project. Of course, taking into account the minimum requirement, each additional member of the consortium needs to have a separate legal entity. And there is a procedure in order for them to be registered in the funding and tenders portal. Like that, they can have the so-called PIC, which is a unique identifier, and their data and legal entity will be then validated by the Commission services.
But if your question is that you are a subsidiary of a larger group which is located elsewhere, you need to have a legal entity in the country. It's the legal entity that applies, of course. The legal entity that applies should be established in one of the EU member states. If that was the question about the pyramid of ownerships, it's one legal entity that applies, not necessarily the owners.
Perfect. And I guess the implication of that is only the registered companies in the consortium can benefit from the grant.
Yes.
Yeah. So
yes, if they are members of the consortium, if they are associated partners or affiliated entities, these are different roles and are exactly. Not beneficiaries. Yes.
So I don't think today we will have time to go into this, what you just said, Chrysoula. We will have I think Frederic Pujol mentioned there will be a special workshop specifically looking at, as you said, affiliated partners, consortium partner, subcontractor, etc., etc. This will be explored in a special session later in the year. I think, Chrysoula, there's a very important element, and if you could share it on the screen or in the chat, I don't know, but every applicant, I think you explained, needs to get signed support documents from their member state. But I believe you have a portal where all these the issuing authorities in each member state are listed. I think this would be probably very helpful for people if you could share that, because I think this is, as you mentioned, this is one of the first things you check. So I don't know if you can tell us a little bit more of where our participants can get this
Yes,
this
indeed.
information.
There is an available link also in the presentation I gave with the national contact points. So I will look for it just now and I will share it in the chat.
Thanks a lot, Chrysoula, because I think that's really important. And then because this is a CEF call, I don't know if this is a question for Chrysoula or Eric, but I have participated in other CEF calls, particularly on the 5G corridors, and the security features were a big part of the discussions. Is this a requirement, the origin of the equipment, also under the CEF 5G smart communities?
Well, about that, the security requirements, they are explained basically in the call text, and every word counts. So it's difficult to talk about it. It's not written like that in the call text. So I really suggest that you rather refer to the call text and read the way it is formulated, and that's what applies. I simply remember that it's not formulated. The formulation is not exactly asking the origin of the equipment, but this is how shall I say? This is not something you can paraphrase. It's it's written. There is a security declaration, and then it explains all the elements that are required very precisely in the call text. I prefer to refer to the call text rather than to try to paraphrase and summarize differently.
That's right, but the security declaration is a compulsory element of any application.
Voilà.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Chrysoula. We see the national contact points. I think that's really good. I believe, I hope, I've captured all of your questions, and I want to thank Eric and Chrysoula for answering all of them. I'd like to pass the floor now maybe back to Frederic, because now you just stopped sharing the word cloud, but there were a lot of reactions from you on your expectations for the future interaction with the network or with the platform. So maybe I pass the floor to Frederic to just comment on this and how we might address this in future workshops. Frederic, sorry, you're muted, I think.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, one of the most important words that appears in this cloud here is smart city. So yes, it's part of our tasks. And as I mentioned before, we're already in contact with the Living in EU CSA, which is addressing the smart cities. And then the second one, the lessons learned from previous projects. Yeah, this will be addressed, maybe not in the capacity building sessions, but in other workshops. So this will be part, of course, of the use case, the description of the use cases, the best practices. So this is part of the deliverables of the support platforms. So it will be available on the digital strategy dedicated pages. 5G Smart, yes, I think this is clearly at the heart of this support platform. And then I can see focus on public authorities. This will be covered by the public authorities group. Then I can see a few words related to use cases, for instance, public safety, smart city electricity. This is very specific here. Also references to rural or not urban use cases. This was also mentioned when talking about the Belgian project of Call One. Again, smart city. Okay. Yeah, so we will include that in our thoughts for the organization of the capacity building sessions. And yeah, I'd like to thank you very much for your feedback here. This is very useful.
Thank you, Frederic. I'm sure you and your colleagues will be back with specific workshops. I see a special question from Eric from La Réunion. Eric, great to see you. I don't think we have use cases yet for small islands, so we'll wait for you. You have to create the use case, then others will learn from you. So I think it's the call as such would be very appropriate and fitting, but I don't think we yet have any specific example. And then I see also that the simplification of projects. This is what Frederic mentioned at the beginning in his presentation. This is actually one of the things that the 5G Smart Communities platform wants to do with the Commission, is to gather your feedback on how potentially these calls, these procedures can be made more user-friendly or adapted. So Frederic will do this feedback loop, let's say, with you, the users, the applicants, to see how the next call, obviously for this call it's too late, but for the next call maybe adaptations can be made. In the end, of course, it's not Frederic making the choices will be made by the Commission, but gathering your feedback on how this can be streamlined or made clearer, this is definitely part of what Frederic and his colleagues will try to do. There's a very good question here, and this I think will be a perfect end from Eurocities. Gabriela, Eric, when is the next call after? So this call ends on the 21st of March, and what's next?
It's not confirmed yet, Chrysoula, but we are planning. Chrysoula, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we are planning it at the end of to start at the end of this year and to finish a bit like this one at the beginning Q1 quarter one of next year, correct?
Yes, let's say still this year in 23, but the timeline is still to be approved.
Voilà.
Thank you very much. So with this, I'd like to thank everyone for your participation. First of all, of course, thank you very much to the colleagues from the Commission and HaDEA for giving us your time and giving all these clarifications. Eric, Franco, Chrysoula, Caroline, thanks a lot. And of course, to Frederic, Pujol, and the colleagues, Moa, Angelo, that have organized all of this. It's been an honor being your moderator today. And of course, thanks most of all to all of you joining us today on the session and for the many, many questions that you've asked. I hope you found it useful. We tried to answer as many as we could. As I mentioned before, the session will be recorded because I'm sure for some of it you will need to re-listen to it to remember what was answered. So the recording will be shared on the Digital Strategies website. You will see the link that Lavinia posted earlier. And please follow then that page in the future because there will be certainly more things happening there organized by Frederic and his colleagues. Thank you, everyone, and hope to meet you soon.
Thank you. Goodbye.